Perhaps you once believed that somewhere out there is a soulmate made just for you. Someone who would understand every hidden corner inside you, who would never leave, never hurt you. But life doesn't unfold that way. You meet people who make you hopeful, only to be disappointed. You grow tired of choosing the wrong person, repeating the same kind of story over and over, only changing the face. Jung suggests something difficult to accept, but deeply liberating. The people who step into your life, especially those who bring you to the emotional bottom, are not just others. They are mirrors. They reflect the parts of you that you've never dared to look at directly. The wounds, the fears, the longings, and even the forgotten strength. This piece does not promise to show you how to find the right person. Instead, it uses Carl Jung's core theories to help you see one truth more clearly. You do not really meet a soulmate. You meet yourself in the mirror. And when you begin to understand that mirror, peace starts from within. 1. Encounters as projection. If it is true that you do not meet a soulmate but meet a mirror, then what exactly does that mirror reflect? Why are there people who step into your life and make you feel lighter, while others only need to appear and your entire nervous system tightens like a stretched string? Jung has a beautiful saying: the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. He does not see relationships as a game of choosing the right or wrong person, but as living experiments, where our inner world becomes visible through our reactions to others. According to Jung, the first thing to understand is the mechanism of projection. Instead of seeing ourselves directly, we often take the parts of us that are still unconscious, fears, desires, old wounds, and unconsciously paste them onto the person in front of us. Like an inner projector, we use the other person as a blank screen. We think we are seeing them clearly, but in fact we are seeing a part of ourselves that we have never named. Try imagining that each person you meet is a surface of water acting as a mirror. When the water is still, you see your face clearly, every feature, both the parts you like and the parts you don't. When the water is choppy, the image is distorted, jerky, hard to make out, but it is still you. Only you are seeing yourself in a disturbed state. The people who make you furious, obsessed, infatuated, or unreasonably uncomfortable are precisely the mirrors being violently shaken. The bigger the emotion, the stronger the waves, and the more necessary it becomes to look carefully at the image inside. In everyday life, you have already seen projection at work. A person who constantly criticizes others for being undisciplined, lazy, or not trying hard enough is often someone who cannot accept their own fatigue and limitations. They do not allow themselves to rest, to be weak, to be wrong. Every time they see someone relax or let go, they immediately feel irritated because that person unintentionally touches the inner part they are trying to suppress. In other words, the harshness directed outward is an echo of the harshness directed inward. Even very famous people are not exempt from this mechanism. Linus Torvalds, the father of Linux, has long been known as someone extremely direct, even harsh, in how he responds to collaborators when the source code does not meet standards. On the surface, this is a story about protecting software quality, but if we look through Jung's lens, we see something else. Inner standards that are too high, a fear of mistakes, and inner imperfection that drives him to react strongly to any sign of not good enough on the outside. Other people become the screen onto which his lack of self-compassion is projected. This example illustrates that our irritation with others is often a manifestation of an unresolved inner conflict. Here, Jung's way of seeing is quite different from the image of the lost other half that Plato once spoke of. According to Plato, deep within us is a soul that has been split in two, and we spend our whole life searching for the other half to become complete. That view makes it easy to believe that as long as we find the right person, Every space in our hearts will be filled. Jung does not deny the longing for union, but he emphasizes this. What we are seeking is not outside, but resides in the very unconscious part of ourselves. The other person is not a missing piece, but a mirror helping us see the piece that is missing. Therefore, instead of only asking, "Why are they treating me like this?" Jung would encourage you to add another layer of questioning. What is it about them that is touching what part of me? The last time someone made you angry or intensely attracted, what exactly about them was it? Carelessness, indifference, freedom, confidence, or coldness? Once you can name that, sincerely ask yourself, am I lacking, craving, or denying something similar within myself? The answer is often uncomfortable, but very illuminating. When you begin to see relationships as mirrors, you feel less like a victim of others. Questions like, why do I keep meeting this type of person? Or, why is everyone who comes into my life the same? Start to take on a different meaning. They are no longer just complaints, but signs that some inner pattern is repeating, that there is an unfinished inner lesson. Each time you react strongly, it is not only about them, but a very clear reminder from yourself to you. And when you look more closely, you will notice something else intriguing. Some people appear exactly when you are at your weakest, most confused, or standing at a crossroads in life. They seem to arrive by chance, yet they open up a new way of seeing, a new emotional landscape, or an old wound that needs healing. Jung has a very deep concept to describe these moments, when the inner world and outer world seem to quietly make an appointment. In the next part, we will step into that territory, where encounters are no longer random, but become signs for your inner awakening. 2. Synchronicity, not a coincidence. When you begin to see relationships as mirrors, you will probably start to notice that some people enter your life at moments that are so perfectly timed, it feels hard to believe they are just coincidences. It might be an old friend suddenly texting you right after you've gone through a heavy breakup. It might be a teacher, a coworker, or a stranger on a flight who says exactly the sentence you needed to hear. Those moments make us wonder, is this just luck, or is there something deeper going on? Jung used a very important concept to describe this phenomenon, synchronicity. He defined it as, synchronicity isn't a causal connecting principle. In other words, some events happen at the same time and are deeply, meaningfully connected, but cannot be explained by a normal chain of cause and effect. They are like two lines that seem separate, suddenly intersecting precisely at the point where your inner world is moving the most intensely. You can imagine your life as a mosaic. Each experience, each relationship is a small piece. Some pieces have been there for a long time, seemingly unrelated to one another. Then suddenly, at a time when you are the loneliest, the most lost, or standing at a crucial crossroads, a new person appears. They arrive like an unexpected piece that fits snugly into a gap you did not even know you were carrying. When that piece locks in, you suddenly see a part of the picture that used to be completely blurry. Think back to a time when you had just gone through emotional hurt, feeling that no one understood you, that no one was really there for you. You pulled back, no longer wanting to talk to anyone. Right then, a message arrives from a friend you haven't spoken to in a long time. Just a quick check-in, an invitation for coffee, a simple, "How have you been lately?" Logically, you can call it random, but deep down, your feelings know, it's like I've just been pulled up from underwater. Just that simple presence can make you feel seen again, connected again, still having a bridge to the world. On a larger scale, synchronicity can be seen in encounters that completely change the direction of a life. Paul McCartney met John Lennon for the first time when he was still a young man fumbling with music, not knowing where he was headed. That encounter didn't just open the path to the Beatles, it shaped his entire creative life and artistic identity. If we only say they ran into each other by chance, it sounds too thin. Through Jung's lens, we can see this as a form of synchronicity. At the exact moment McCartney's inner world was searching for something bigger and deeper, a person carrying a corresponding energy appeared like an answer. Freud, who came before Jung, often tried to explain everything through unconscious drives and clear chains of causality. This leads to that. This trauma causes that symptom. Jung did not deny that part, but he realized that some experiences go beyond a linear cause and effect model. With synchronicity, he spoke of a subtler kind of connection. When your inner world has accumulated enough energy for a change, the outer world begins to respond with people, events, and signs that match it. What's worth noting is that synchronicity is not the universe putting on a show to make you happy or sad for drama's sake. It is more like a map the soul uses to communicate with you. When you consistently ignore inner signals, sadness, stuckness, a sense of meaninglessness, then outer signals will start to speak louder through encounters, relationships, and collisions. The person who comes into your life right when you are exhausted might be the one who lifts you, or the one who pushes you to rock bottom, forcing you to ask, what am I really living like this for? What Jung suggests is not that you should obsessively decode the universe. He simply invites you to pose one gentle yet profound question. Whenever an encounter feels too well-timed, ask yourself, what is this person's presence reflecting inside me? It might be a reminder that you are not alone. It might be a mirror revealing a pattern you are repeating. It might be an invitation for you to step out of your comfort zone, or conversely, to come back and care for yourself. Here, reason and intuition can work together. Reason helps you look at the situation clearly. Who is this person? Are they truly safe, healthy? Intuition helps you feel, why am I so deeply moved? Why do I feel this familiarity, even though we just met? If you use only reason, you will easily chalk everything up to coincidence and miss the inner message. If you rely only on emotion, you may fall into illusion, assigning too much mystical meaning to a connection that hasn't had enough time to be tested. The balance between the two is what allows you to listen to synchronicity maturely. You can try recalling a few turning points in your life: an unexpected email, a sudden invitation to collaborate, a friend asking you to join a trip you almost refused. If you string them together, you may realize, without that encounter, there would be no current version of you. Thinking in this way, we stop seeing events as mere luck or misfortune, and more as a subtle response of life to what we are carrying inside. Synchronicity does not mean everyone who comes to you is a destiny you must hold on to. Sometimes, a person comes only to open your eyes to something, to touch an unhealed wound, or to remind you that it is time to stop. They are not always a pleasant gift, but almost always a part of your inner growth story. Instead of asking, is this the person I was born for? Perhaps the more useful question is, what part of my life is their presence asking me to be honest about? When you view things this way, the outer world is no longer a meaningless string of random events. It becomes a vast mirror made up of countless small pieces, each one a person, an encounter. Some pieces reflect the beautiful, full parts of you. Others, more uncomfortable, reflect the cracks, the dark corners, the places still unhealed. The deeper you go into this journey, the more you will realize. The most well-timed encounters often do not only bring warmth, but sometimes also stir up the painful places you thought you had forgotten. That is precisely when another aspect of Jung's thought begins to speak. The shadow, the inner darkness. If projection shows us how we cast ourselves onto others, and synchronicity shows us when the lessons arrive, then shadow will reveal more clearly what is inside, asking to be seen, healed, and held. And that is where the journey becomes deeper, but also truly liberating. 3. Shadow awakens. If synchronicity shows us that well-timed encounters are not random at all, then among those, Have you ever wondered why we are so often drawn to the same type of person, the same type of story, and then hurt in the same way? Even if you change your name, change cities, change circumstances, certain patterns keep repeating like an old background track you don't understand why you must keep listening to. Jung called the force behind these loops shadow, the inner darkness. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In Jung's language, the shadow is not something evil in a moral sense. It is all the parts of you that were once rejected, judged, pushed out of the light. Wounds, shame, unmet needs, emotions that were labeled weak, annoying. Imagine there is a deep lake inside you. On the surface, everything can look calm, orderly, fine. But at the bottom, there are ink stains that fell long ago. The first time you were abandoned, the times you were compared to others, the moments you felt not good enough, not chosen. When nothing touches the water, they lie still at the bottom, almost invisible. Only when someone steps into your life and stirs the surface do those ink stains dissolve, rise, and cloud the water. We often call that drama, toxic, cruel fate. But through Jung's eyes, it is a shadow being stirred so you can see it. That is why a person can fall over and over into relationships with people who do not respect them. The surface story may be different. One is busy, one is indifferent, one is controlling, one is unfaithful. But the core feeling is very similar. The sense of becoming small, of having no worth, of needing to try just a bit harder to be loved. Seen from the shadow, this is not merely bad luck in love, but an old ink stain being stirred again and again, the stain named, "I am not worthy." As a child, maybe you were ignored, scolded for wanting too much, or only loved when you were good, smart, or achieving. The inner child in you learned, "I am only worthy of attention when I am useful, when I meet expectations." That dark part does not disappear when you grow up. It just sinks to the bottom of the lake. Then one day, you meet someone who feels strangely familiar, distant, busy, emotionally unavailable, making you try endlessly and still never feel complete. The surface is stirred, and the old ink stain spreads again. We call that love. But often, it is simply the shadow rising to be seen. Even famous people have to go through the journey of facing their shadow. Daniel Radcliffe, after stepping out of the halo of Harry Potter, did not choose safety with predictable, heroic roles. He accepted darker, more complex characters, took part in theater and art films, and openly spoke about his struggles with pressure, addiction, and personal image. On some level, that is a journey out of perfect light, to dare to look at and work with the darkness within. It is not comfortable, but it is mature. Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist philosopher, once emphasized that humans are completely free and fully responsible for their choices. It is a powerful reminder of personal responsibility. But if we see only that, we easily fall into self-blame and shame. Why do I keep choosing wrong? Am I really that stupid? Jung added another layer to this picture. We are free, but most of the time, we are driven by unconscious parts we do not yet know. The loop is not just a bad choice, but the shadow quietly deciding what type of person, what type of situation we are drawn to recreate the old wound with the unconscious hope that this time it will finally be healed. So what can we do with the darkness? Jung did not advise us to push it deeper down, nor did he encourage us to drown in it. He spoke of shadow work as a slow and honest journey. It could be as simple as writing down, truthfully, the repeating patterns in your relationships. It could be sitting with a therapist and, for the first time, daring to say things like, "I always feel less than," "I always feel that if I don't keep trying, I'll be left behind." It could also be very ordinary moments when you catch yourself thinking, I'm trying to prove I'm worthy again. And instead of continuing, you choose to stop, choose to hold your own feelings. Each time you notice a loop, dare to name it and take responsibility for your part in it. The shadow takes one step out of the unconscious into the light. It no longer controls you from behind the curtain, but becomes something you can talk to, care for, and transform. The people who used to be the villains in your story gradually become mirrors. They still hold responsibility for their behavior, but you are no longer bound to the role of victim. And then, when you have worked with a shadow long enough, you begin to see something more subtle. You are not drawn to everyone randomly. There is a kind of template, a certain kind of energy you keep returning to, as if inside you there is a background soundtrack playing the same familiar melodies about masculinity, femininity, about the image of a lover, a life partner. Jung had a specific concept for this: anima and animus, the inner templates of the other that we often unconsciously carry throughout life. And once you understand these templates, you will see even more clearly why you chose the people you once chose. 4. Hidden templates, anima and animus. There is something quite ironic in the healing journey. Even when you've started to recognize your own darkness, already understood how you repeat the same patterns of hurt, your heart still tends to circle back to the same familiar type of person. You look back at your past relationships and see a thin line running through them all. The faces change, the circumstances change, but the core feeling is strangely the same. You know it isn't good for you, and yet you are drawn in like a leaf before a strong wind. Jung named this strange pull with two concepts: anima and animus. He wrote, "The animus corresponds to the paternal logos, just as the anima corresponds to the maternal eros." It sounds academic, but can be understood simply like this. Inside each of us, there is an unconscious template of masculine energy and feminine energy, of the other we are drawn to. That template is your ideal type, but it is not created by your present-day mind. It is gradually formed from your earliest experiences with your parents or other major figures of influence. If shadow is the totality of what has been rejected, then anima/animus is the part in charge of attraction and idealization. It is like a background soundtrack for your love life. Every time you saw your parents fighting or reconciling, every time you were embraced or ignored, every time you watched someone love someone else in movies or books, all those images accumulate into an unconscious playlist. By the time you are an adult and you meet someone in real life, that sense of "I know this energy already" is precisely that playlist starting to play again. That is why someone can repeatedly fall for people who abandon them, even after promising themselves never again. Deep down, the template love comes with waiting, anxiety, never fully feeling secure, may have been imprinted very early. Maybe as a child, you had a father who was often absent, or a mother who was emotionally unpredictable, promises often broken. The inner child learned that love means waiting, love means worrying, love means always feeling like you could be left at any moment. When you grow up, just meeting someone who gives you that same feeling causes the anima or animus to speak up. This feels so familiar. This must be my person. Or like a teacher who grew up in a family where parents were often critical and rarely gave praise, and later often finds herself attracted to people who are successful but demanding and judgmental. Her rational mind knows she is exhausted from always having to meet the standard to be validated, but her heart still beats faster for that kind of person, because every time she receives one rare moment of acknowledgement, she reconnects with a childhood feeling. Finally, I am good enough. Finally, I am seen. If this template is not recognized, it will lead her to keep seeking her parents in the form of lovers, bosses, and life partners. On the other hand, some people gradually step out of the unconscious template to choose a different way of being. Angela Merkel, though she did not use the language of anima/animus, is a clear example in her political life. In a political world used to loud, showy styles of leadership, she chose calm, deliberation, and low drama. She did not try to become a model man, on the political stage, nor did she play the role of the soft woman to win public favor. She redefined her own style, stepping outside traditional power templates. Psychologically, this is the act of someone who does not let predetermined patterns dictate who she must be. Erich Fromm, in his book The Art of Loving, said that love is an art, a skill that must be cultivated, not just a burst of emotion that comes and goes. Jung would not disagree with that, but he would add, before learning the skills of loving, we need to know which soundtrack we are loving to, because if inside you, the anima or animus is still playing a track full of drama and insecurity, then no matter how many books you read about dating, you will still tend to choose people who keep that track going. So what can we do with these hidden templates? A very practical step is to look back at your own emotional file. Try sitting down and writing out the people you have loved deeply or been intensely attracted to. Don't just note who they are on paper. Also write down the dominant feelings you had when you were with them. What did you often feel you had to prove? Did you have to play the role of the strong, always okay one, or the obedient, easygoing one who never causes trouble? Did you have to shrink or inflate parts of yourself to keep them from leaving? Looking back this way, you may start to see connecting threads between them. They might differ in profession, appearance, surface personality, but they all make you feel similar things. That is when the template begins to show itself. It is not just your type of man or type of woman, but your emotional type. What state you are used to living in, what you are used to enduring, what you are used to trading away in exchange for a bit of warmth or recognition. Next, ask yourself a very important question. Are these feelings something I truly value, or am I simply used to them since childhood? Certainty is different from control. Care is different from possession. Independence is different from emotional distance. If you don't distinguish these, you can easily confuse someone who brings a familiar feeling with someone who truly fits your current values. The good news is that once the template is named, you gain more space to choose differently. You don't have to force yourself to change your type overnight, but you can start moving more slowly. You might notice, this person again has a very similar energy to the old pattern, and instead of rushing in, you give yourself time to observe, to listen to what you are really hoping for. You can also allow yourself to open up to people you would previously dismiss as too safe, boring, or not exciting enough. Sometimes, within that quiet safety you once called boring, there is exactly the kind of love the grown-up part of you deeply needs. Only when we become conscious of the inner template do we truly have the freedom to choose someone who fits. Otherwise, we are merely living out an old script and calling it the voice of the heart. As you gradually become more self-directed with your anima and animus, the quality of your relationships changes too. Fewer dizzying highs that leave you drained. More connections where you feel you can be yourself and still be loved. Less of the urge to prove your worth. More of the sense of being seen for who you already are. And when you've come this far, another question naturally arises. If love is no longer a stage for repeating wounds, no longer the place to search for a savior, then what does real, mature love look like? Jung offers a gentle hint. Such love is not loud, not theatrical, but takes the shape of a deep inner peace. In the next part, we will step into that space where love is not the storm, but the shelter. 5. Love is peace, not salvation. Once you begin to recognize your inner templates, you may notice something else. Many times, what we call love is actually just intense emotion erupting from parts of us that have not yet been healed. We call obsession destiny, anxiety depth, and the inability to breathe loving too much. Then, when everything shatters, we ask ourselves, if this is love, why am I so exhausted? Jung has an important saying, wholeness is not achieved by the suppression of one's opposites, but by the conscious integration of them. For him, the goal of psychological life is not to become perfect, but to become whole. Wholeness is when you no longer have to reject your own weakness, wounds, sensitivity, or longing. You see them, you name them, and you learn how to hold them as part of your total being. Jung called that process individuation. It is the journey of becoming yourself, not a copy of your parents, not a product of societal expectations, not the easy-to-accept version you once constructed to be loved. When you walk this path, what changes is not only you, but also the way you love. You no longer look for someone to come and heal everything, to fill every space, to prove that you are worthy. You start seeking something else: peace, respect, and the capacity to grow together. You've probably known someone who, after many heartbreaks, one day suddenly says, "Turns out, my happiness doesn't lie in anyone else's hands." The first time you hear it, that sentence may sound cliché, but if you watch closely, you'll see. They begin to spend time with themselves, take care of their health, learn a new skill, reconnect with friends, nourish the things that used to bring them joy without needing anyone to witness it. Gradually, their face softens. They no longer panic whenever a relationship ends. When new love comes, they welcome it, but they don't cling like before. They love, but they no longer hand over their entire emotional existence to the other person. On a larger scale, Angela Merkel is an interesting example of inner calm in a highly turbulent environment. She is not someone who relies on dramatic imagery to draw attention. She is steady, composed, focused on what needs to be done, and does not allow herself to be pulled into unnecessary storms. Even though she doesn't use Jung's language, her political life is very close to the spirit of individuation, knowing who she is, where she stands, needing neither flamboyance nor role-playing. A person like that carries a different field of energy into any relationship. Not, "Come and save me," but, "Let's each do our part well, together." Stendhal once praised love as an intense crystallization, idealizing the beloved. The more passionate and extreme, the more marvelous. The problem is, if we live only by that view, we easily confuse emotional addiction with mature love. Very strong feelings can help us temporarily forget the emptiness inside. But when the high fades, the old wounds rise again, sometimes deeper, because we have placed too much hope on the other person. Jung is not against emotion, but he reminds us, if we are not whole inside, we will use love as a painkiller, and each relationship will become a stronger dose than the last. The solution here is not stop loving altogether, but to reverse the center of gravity, from placing all hope in another person to turning inward and building a foundation within. Investing in yourself is not about becoming more perfect for someone else, but about you feeling that your life is meaningful, with or without a relationship. When you have work, friendships, interests, and values that you truly cherish, love becomes an extension of that life, not its only salvation. You can ask yourself a very direct question. Am I waiting for someone to arrive so that my life can begin? Or am I already truly living my life? The answer will show you whether you are using love as salvation or as companionship. When two people meet from that foundation, love is no longer a story of lack and completion, but an encounter between two journeys that are growing. No one has to carry the responsibility of healing the other, yet both can support, mirror, and evolve together. And precisely because the inside is less dependent, we finally have the courage to do something extremely difficult but necessary. Let go of relationships that are no longer right for us, even when we still care. In the next part, we will step into that very moment, when loving no longer means clinging, but daring to walk away to stay honest with yourself. 6. Letting go to grow. As you gradually understand that mature love is not about salvation, another truth also appears, though it is very hard to accept. There are relationships where the kindest thing you can do for both of you is not to try harder, but to let go. And yet, between knowing and doing, there is always a very large gap. Many of us stay in relationships we already know are no longer right for us, like staying in a house whose walls have cracked and the roof is leaking. simply because it was once the place we took shelter from the rain. Jung has a very clear statement: "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." This sentence is not only about past trauma, but it also touches how we face the present. We are not only the result of what we have endured, we are also the result of the choices we dare to make, especially difficult choices like leaving. At a deeper level, the reason we don't dare leave an unsuitable relationship is often not just about love. It is tied to the fear of loneliness, the fear of never finding anyone better, the fear of having to start over, and even the fear of facing the question, if I no longer have a role in this relationship, then who am I? Many people have tied their identity to being someone's lover, someone's spouse, the one who is always there, always enduring, to the point that just thinking about leaving feels like being uprooted. But maturity, in Jung's spirit, is not staying in what is familiar, but daring to redefine yourself. This sometimes requires a very quiet kind of courage, the courage to admit that a pattern, a story, an old version of you has expired, the courage to say enough to the very things that once saved you, a relationship that helped you escape loneliness, a role that once gave you a sense of worth, a way of enduring that once helped you survive. You can see this very clearly in someone who decides to leave a toxic relationship. They usually do not walk away after the first hurt. Before that, there have been many times of brushing things off, many times of blaming themselves, many times of trying just a little more, until one day they realize they have lost too much: their health, their self-respect, their trust in themselves. The decision to leave at that point is no longer an impulsive reaction, but a conscious choice. I deserve a different kind of life. After that, their journey is not just about getting away from another person, but about relearning how to live a life that does not revolve around maintaining a relationship at all costs. You've probably come across stories like this in the media. One of the clearest examples of the spirit of letting go to grow is the breakup of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. For years, they were seen as Hollywood's golden couple, building the image of an ideal family and working together on social causes. But eventually, they had to face the reality that their individual values, goals, and personal wounds made the relationship no longer fit their journeys of growth. Breaking up wasn't just about ending a relationship that had once meant so much. It also took the courage to face their own shadows, the fear of loneliness, regret, and old expectations that no longer served them. Both chose not to let the past define their future, but instead to learn gratitude for what they'd shared, to honor the journey they'd taken together, and to be ready to move forward and grow in their own ways. That's the spirit we all need in life, to be thankful for what has helped us grow, but not to cling to it as if it were an unchangeable destiny. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." This sentence can be inspiring, but if misunderstood, we can easily use it to justify enduring far too long in unhealthy situations. Jung, from another angle, would say, not everything we endure automatically turns into strength. Only when we become conscious, learn the lesson, and actively transform, including daring to leave what harms us, does the experience become real strength. Letting go, therefore, is not failure. It is a declaration that you choose to stand on the side of your own aliveness. It is the moment you practice self-respect, not just in words, but in concrete actions. Saying no to what no longer fits, even if it was once a beautiful story, once an important support. You can ask yourself, in my current life, what am I holding on to only because I'm afraid of change? A relationship, an image, a role? And then one more question. If I dared to let go, in what directions might my life open up? When we dare to release what is no longer truly us, we create space for what fits us better to arrive. Relationships are the same. When you no longer stay only out of fear, you finally have the chance to meet people you choose from wholeness, not from lack. Maturity, in the end, is the ability to say goodbye to old versions of yourself, old houses, old mirrors that have already shown you one completed lesson, so you can keep walking the path of discovering yourself more deeply. If you look back over the whole journey, you may see more clearly. We are not truly searching for a soulmate to save us, but passing through many different mirrors to recognize, transform, and grow. Projection shows us what we are casting onto others. Synchronicity tells us why certain encounters happen at the right time. Shadow reveals the wounds that are still unhealed. Anima/Animus uncovers the templates we are drawn to. Individuation calls us back to inner wholeness, and letting go teaches us to stand on the side of our own aliveness. When we understand this, relationships are no longer places where we lose ourselves, but spaces where two conscious human beings can grow together. Happiness does not begin with finding the right person, but with gradually becoming someone honest, gentle, and responsible with yourself. As Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." If you recognize yourself somewhere in what has just been shared, I invite you to tell your own story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue to walk together on deeper stretches of the road into the inner world.